Hello, it's Adedoyin Jaiyesimi here, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about how to manage communication slash social media for a conference. I've received a number of questions about that, and I know this is a season where you find that organizations are hosting a number of conferences from September to November. So if in your role you have to manage comms and social media for a conference or quarterly event, I believe that you'll find some of the tips and best practice that I will share with you in this video. Over the course of my career, I think I've managed comms and social media for at least 12 conferences. So I know I've been part of 2 WIMBIZ annual conferences. I've been part of 3 of the African Philanthropy Conference, 1 in Lagos, 1 in South Africa, which was really fun, and then 1 in Rwanda, which took place last year. It was part of the conference by the W Community, which is run by Access Bank. There's a sustainability conference, part of the Nigerian Economic Summit, which is an annual conference that takes place October. I think it's October every year. I think I did that 3 times, although I was a social media volunteer, but that was an experience. There's so many that honestly that skipped my mind. Oh, and obviously there are church conferences as well. Yeah. Anyway, point being that I've done this a number of times. I do like conferences, but I've also realized that a lot of planning needs to go into ensuring that you get the most out of a conference in terms of communications. And what I've also discovered is that, as with a lot of things with the work that we do, people bring on comms at the very last minute. So they've decided on the theme of the conference, they've decided on the speakers, and then they're like, oh, okay, this conference is in October. Well, we're in the end of August, and you're like, what am I supposed to do with this? And usually the conferences that I've worked on them as a consultant and not as an in-house person. So I will be brought on that very last minute. I remember there was one that it was so late and there was little or nothing I could do. It was supposed to be a virtual conference and she was looking for like 10,000 people. And I'm like, girl, I'm not a magician. So that aside, I'm going to share how I approach conferences. Now, it's important to think about it pre-conference, during the conference, and post-conference. Before you go into the pre-conference stage, I will advise that you ensure that you are part of the planning or conceptualization process, because it really does help certain decisions that they make in terms of the theme, the topics, the sessions, the speakers, the activities also has an impact on your work. And as I go along, I will be highlighting some of the key things that the organization, the conference planning team needs to really think about so that it helps you do a great job in terms of handling comms for that conference. Now, before you go ahead into your pre-conference, you need to think about, is this conference a paid conference or is it a free conference? Because if it is a paid conference, there is more persuasion. You need to be able to sell the value of the conference. It's not that you won't sell the value of the conference for a free conference, but for a paid one, people need to be able to justify their conferences that go as high as $1,000, $2,000. I recently attended a conference that I paid 50,000 naira. And I was happy to pay that money. So you need to be able to understand the factors that would drive people to attend your conference and make sure that those factors feature in the program and design of the conference, which is why I said you should be embedded right from the beginning. So usually conferences, people are coming to learn. They're coming to learn best practice, things that they can apply right now, or they're also coming to network. I think most people usually come to network, look for opportunities, either business opportunities, collaboration opportunities. It all depends on the kind of conference that it is. So you need to think about those things. You need to understand, who are we targeting at this conference? Are we targeting all women? So for like a WIMBIZ annual conference, is usually open to all women. So what would be the attracting factor for the different buckets of women that we have? If you watched my comms course on strategic communications, I say to you that you cannot be targeting everybody. So even if a conference is for all women, you will know that a woman that is in her 20s, early 20s, and a woman that is in her early 30s, a woman that is in her 40s and above, there are different stages in life. So there are different things that will appeal to them in your conference. So if your conference themes and sessions and speakers is focused on the people between the 20 to 30 something band, and you want people over 50 to come, why would they attend? So you also have to factor that into your design. And the great thing about conferences is that they're usually like breakout sessions, interactive sessions that people can choose which ones they want to go for. So that gives you room to capture as many people as possible into the program design. So just as a recap, you really need to think about, is this conference free or paid? Who are we targeting? What is the selling point of this conference? What will make people want to attend? Now, I usually advise, and I will talk about it at the end of this video, you need to be able to track, if this is an annual conference that has been happening year on year, you need to be able to track the data. What have people said, for example, is the high point for them in this conference? What has been their biggest takeaways? What would they like to see? So as a pre-conference activity for me, I would like to know what are the pain points, what are the questions that my target audience is asking, so that, for example, we are embedding that into the program and design of the conference. So let's say we want to host a communications conference in September or in October in Africa. AI is a trending topic. Now, instead of me to create a panel where people are just going to be talking about AI and the benefits and all of that, I would instead do a workshop that is focused on AI, that breaks down step by step what people need to know, how they can begin to infuse AI in the work that they do as a communications professional. That has a greater selling point than just a panel conversation. It's not like the panel conversation will not be useful, but think about it. There's so many master classes now. There's so many online videos where people are talking about AI, but then people are like, this is a lot of information. I need practical how-to steps on how to implement this in my work as a communications professional. So that is how you need to think about program design. Again, you need to work collaboratively with the programs team. And if, for example, you aren't there yet, you need to position yourself. You need to make them see the importance of bringing you on board. And that's why I need you to make strategic decisions about your communications activities. And I will talk more about that as we go along. So pre-conference, you want to be able to sample your audience. Now, what people usually do pre-conference, so if a conference is happening in September, so you see they will post the speaker, they will put the speaker profile, then something that is common is creatives on social media from the guests. I will be attending. I'm not a fan of those, but people say it works. I'm like, okay, maybe it works. If you've seen any of those, I will be attending. I don't know how many of you pay attention to the content. I just scroll past it, right? So I think about, for me, it's about, is this the strategically best option for me to be able to promote or publicize this conference? But there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a personal thing that I don't like it. Okay, so usually people will post the speakers, attendees will post, oh, I am attending this conference. Now, you need to plan your pre-conference activities broader than just focusing on showing us the speakers and showing us the people who are attending. And a good way to be able to do this is to get content from previous conferences that speaks to where your target audience is now. And then through your content, you can show them that they will find answers, practical answers to some of these questions or pain points by attending your conference. It's going to be very, very important. Looking at your speakers, in your speaker selection, you should also be very strategic. And I know that the speaker selection is not up to you, but again, you should be able to advise. Remember, your goal as a communications professional is to become a strategic advisor. You can't have a conference and then 90% of the speakers, nobody knows them. They don't have footprint on social media. They're not on LinkedIn. They're not on Instagram. It's not going to help you. You need a good balance of, and I know that there are people, again, depending on the theme of the conference, you may find that, for example, the people that have the information, they're technically sound, they're not active on social media, and that's okay. But you must be able to balance it. Those people that will bring the wealth of information, those people that have some sort of visibility and engagement on social media, some sort of recognition as thought leaders, because again, there will be drivers that will pull in people, get people's attention and all of that. Now, the second thing is your speakers. You would usually, like for the conferences or events that people invite me to speak at, they will send you the speaker creative, and they will ask you to post. Now, it's not a good strategy to rely on your speakers to do the posting. It's great when they do, but it's at their discretion, and that goes either way. Some people wait until the very last minute. Some people don't even post at all, and there's nothing you can do about it. So instead of relying on your speakers alone, and yes, definitely you would send them their creative and all of that, think creatively about how you can leverage the network of that speaker. So can we do a podcast? Can we do a pre-conference activity? And this is something that I think more conferences should do. A pre-conference activity that allows you to capture content of key speakers that you can use to drive the conference themes, the conference topics, and general selling points about the conference. So you can decide to have Instagram live sessions with some of the speakers or ambassadors of your conference, and that's another strategic tactic that you may want to use. Have key ambassadors that their job is to rally people around, and they're pushing out content to promote, because it can't be on you alone. For a lot of in-house comms teams, maybe you're two, maybe you're three, I found that during conferences they have to bring on a consultant because it is a lot and you can't be everywhere at the same time. So you need to be able to rely on a community that you have built, a community of supporters, to be able to push out the content. And most importantly for me is pre-conference, break down the things that you are creating. So you want to tell us about the session topics rather than do a flyer that has so much text. Break it down into infographics. Why is this important? And then select the themes and channel it towards networks that resonate with those themes. So for example, if I'm throwing a women's conference and we have a session on finance, I'm going to look for finance communities and I'm going to share that content with them, highlight why this is important for their people to attend, and engage them to post in their communities. If there's a theme on fashion, I will do the same thing. So you need to break down the themes, look at the audience, look at community groups where you can push this information so that you're getting people to sign up, register, and attend the conference, and the type and quality of people that you need. Okay, so we've spoken about how to leverage your speakers, spoken about being creative about your content. It's not just about pictures and videos alone. There's so many things that you can do. Explore pre-conference activities that drive traction to your page, that drive visibility for your conference. And obviously you can also do your media relations. All of those normal strategies that conferences do, they're great, but I also need you to think outside the box so that you're making, again, strategic choices and decisions about your conference. Now, I would definitely say please give yourself time. If your conference is in September and you haven't started publicizing it at this time, you are very late. And what's going to happen is that you're going to have information overload. You're just going to be posting things, and it's not going to be strategic. Yeah, you may get people that would attend, but it could have been better done. You would get better engagement and insight if you give yourself time to think about this. And for those of you that this conference is an annual conference in your organization, you do this thing annually, you should give yourself the time so that you're putting pressure on them. Guys, we need this information now. We need to know this by so and so month. We need to kickstart pre-conference publicity. Very, very important. Another thing that you may want to think about doing is involving your staff in the conference publicity. What do they like about the conferences? For example, if you have a staff that has attended 7, how has the conference evolved over the years? Just very insightful things, because once you do that, they post on their page, and then they're able to share it with the people in their own community. And then the final thing I would say is that implement some fun pre-conference activities. Again, this will not fall solely on comms. You have to do it in partnership with the conference planning team. But think about what you can do to drive engagement, to drive excitement about the conference, to engage. So you might want to do games. You might want to do polls. You might want to do a speaker takeover before the conference and say, ask us anything, or something that is very interesting, different, that gets people engaged, that gets people talking, but really be very creative about it. So that is pre-conference. There's a lot more I can say, but I don't want this video to be too long. Next thing is during the conference. So you've done all your posts, you put information about the speakers, you've leveraged your newsletter, you've done all the great stuff. Now it's time for the conference. Like I said before, please engage volunteers. If you are 2 or 3 in your comms team, and you think that 3 of you will handle this conference successfully, please, you're going to stress yourself. And this is because if this is a very, very big conference with multiple stakeholders coming, multiple sessions and panels, and you as the internal comms person, you're probably not going to be sitting in one place, because if you've ever attended conferences or events, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So you're troubleshooting something, speaker profile is not here, the speaker profile is wrong, you're dealing with all of that. You're not going to be able to be focused on comms on the day. So it's best that you get volunteers that at least, I don't want to say an at least, because again, it depends on the scale, but I would say build a team of 5 to 10 people so that somebody can be focused on Instagram, for example. If I'm not somebody, like 2-3 people, you have people capturing content, you have people engaging with the photographers to get videos. You need to think about the different aspects of the conference, the content that will be created, and have at least two to three people managing those aspects in case one person maybe doesn't show up or is not able to do it. You are not left stranded. I've attended conferences where the comms person is so swamped and overwhelmed that they're leaning on the audience and the delegates for content, and it's not a great strategy. What if they don't capture the content that you want, especially if it's a paid conference where you're not going to be showing the full thing online, or you're not streaming it live for the general audience? So think about bringing in hands, think about the things that you need to capture. So if you look at, so what I would usually do is I would look at the entire program of the conference and say, these are the things that I need to capture. So there are certain conferences like the African Philanthropy Conference. Before the conference, there's the tour activities. People do something exciting. Maybe they go on to the last one in Kigali. They did a lot of tourist visits before the conference, and post-conference, there are a lot of those visits. So you need to think about what moments do we want to capture? How do we want to engage people? Because those are the exciting moments that you need to be able to capture and post on your social media. Now, capturing of moments is not even for things like that alone, even during the conference. And that's why I said strategic design for the conference is very needed. Now, what some conferences tend to do is that from the beginning to the end, back-to-back activity, talk, and it's very draining, especially if the conference is like 2 to 3 days. It's mentally draining. You're just sitting there and listening to people talk. But you're finding that conferences that are more creative in terms of creating a booth where people, for example, can take pictures, creating opportunities for people to network. Again, the APF conference, on maybe like the day 2, there's a speed networking session. You must think about what will give my attendees and delegates value, even if it's free, because you want them to come again, right? What will give them the most value from this conference? Can we create networking sessions? How can we create sessions for them to have fun even in the conferences? So you find some conferences that there's a dance moment. I know the Wimbys conference, they have the debate. Put highlights and then capture moments, because those fun moments also make your conference to be well balanced. So you're putting out the hard stuff in terms of the information that the speakers are sharing, but you're also sharing the moments, people happy, people doing things, they're involved, they're engaged. You can incorporate that into your program design. Obviously, it really depends on the conference. I can't give you specific examples, but please make sure that you have a media booth. There's something that the WTO does that I really, really like. So they have like a booth for social media, for capturing videos. And then in between sessions, when the speaker comes off stage, they go live on. So last year, they went live on Instagram and Twitter and just talked to the speakers about the session that they've had and quick takeaways that they will want to share with the audience. And it was very, very nice. They also had like an exhibition, and they will go around the different tables to say, oh, what are you exhibiting today? Because it was all about trade. And then, you show, oh, this was made out of coffee sourced from XYZ place. And it was really, really engaging content. So you want to think about, how do I capture content? And people like things like that. They want to be seen on your social media pages. You want to interview them, and don't interview them in this official, rigid way. Make it fun, make it nice. Again, this needs to be incorporated into the design of the conference. Now, the next thing you want to do is to get attendees to share content. While I don't advise that you rely on them to share content, but you need them to share some sort of content. So for example, Twitter, you want the hashtag to trend, or you want it to when people search that hashtag, they see all of that content. People in the hall need to be sharing. And if people are sharing, there's the perception of, oh, they're having a really, really good time. So you want to get people sharing the content as much as possible. So periodically, the MC needs to be announcing that we're on social media, share your highlights, and give them an opportunity, for example, to share things. You can create static images and give them sample formats and templates that they can use to share content on their pages. Usually most people will share on Instagram, but if you are active on Twitter, you want engagement on Twitter, what you can also do, and they did it at one conference, they were posting live tweets and it was really nice. And people say, oh, my tweet is up on the board. So you can do something that allows people to see real-time social media content and encourage more people to post. You can also do, for example, at the end of the conference, give the person with the most tweets some sort of gift. Give them a free spa ticket, something exciting, or you can even announce it from the beginning that the person with the most tweets, the person with the most content is going to win XYZ. Just fun things that make people say, oh, I want to be part of this. Some people are not, whatever you do, some people are not going to tweet or post, and that's okay. But there are people that will do it. And you need to, again, look at the demography, look at the kind of people that this conference is for, and say who is likely to do what would inspire this person to quotes or tweets and put out information. But the most important factor is that the content of the conference, in terms of the speakers, the information that they are selling must be really, not selling, but the information that they are sharing must be really solid. It's like, wow, I'm learning a lot from this. And then have your plan of posting live content. Like I said, if it's just you creating the content, you may not be able to create your own live content. And by live content, I mean videos after the session, pictures after the panel. So what people sometimes do is they wait till the end of the conference, then they now pour everything. It's not a very good strategy. As you go along, you want to be posting content, and then whatever you cannot post, you do a nice recap, and I'll talk to you about post-conference, and then think about how you're going to sustain engagement in the time period between the end of one conference and the next conference. So don't push out all of the information. So you have to plan strategically, whether it's 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days. How are we going to post live content on our social media pages? And the good thing is that you have Instagram, you have Facebook, where people can go live. You can do delegate takeover. You can do speaker takeover. You can also show moments that you don't ordinarily see. So people in the dining room, people having conversations, people having lunch, breakfast, networking, other things, again, that really shows how well thought out this conference is or was. So that is for during the conference. Now, some tips I'm going to share about during the conference that you can leverage for after the conference. Pay attention to sound bites, things that the speakers say that you're like, this can drive conversation on social media. So that's what I used to do when I was volunteering with the social media team of the NESG. I would look for things that the speaker has said or a contribution that I know that would drive engagement, not drive controversy, or they're two different things, that will get people talking, sharing their different perspectives, maybe because the opinion is not conventional, or maybe because it's something that it really is food for thought. So you may want to think about things like that and use that to post live, post it as it happens, or post it after each session. So I think because of how fast conferences go, you may want to wait until the end of the day. Another thing you may want to do, which I did last year with the African Philanthropy Forum conference, is I did some sort of recap of day one. So here's a recap of day one, just bam, 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 highlights of the key things that happened. So you may also want to do that. Now, looking at the questions that people ask the most at conferences, if you really want to leverage this conference to position your organization as a thought leader, as a strategic go-to resource for this topic or this theme or whatever it is that your organization does, you can do that by listening. And that's why I said, I need you to make very strategic choices from your conference. So it's not just about, oh, we're here, we're speaking, we're posting, and we're out. No, somebody is asking questions. What can we do with these questions that these people are answering, or asking rather? So if I take the example of the last conference that I attended one of the breakout sessions, and it was obvious to me that this organization could pioneer very practical knowledge sessions so it's for social impact, non-profits, that if they really wanted to do it, because I could see that there was a thirst for knowledge, for certain things that people didn't know. So there was an opportunity to create resource, or there is an opportunity to create resources, guides, how-to information that helps people to implement some of the things that the speakers have said. So I'm already going into post-conference now, but you have to think about it as the conference is going. And I know that you're going to be, everywhere. So when the conference is over, if it was recorded or if it was live streamed, please listen to the conversation, because the wealth of information that you can use it to build the thought leadership positioning of your organization. Again, strategic choices. And then finally is post-conference. So for post-conference, you want to get the takeaways from delegates. So what we did again for the APF conference last year, we interviewed delegates. What are your key takeaways for this conference? What will you be implementing? You can even do something at the end of the conference where you have maybe Slido or this word cloud and ask people to share one thing they're taking away or one word that sums up the conference. You can create content from that and then post it after the conference to say this is what people are saying about the conference. You can ask them to post their takeaways. I attended a conference one time and they reached out to me to do a blog post about key lessons I took away from the conference. That's very great, because what you can do with that is that you can then put it on certain blogs and media platforms that will be applicable to what that conference theme is. Another thing that you may want to think about is how you're getting feedback from attendees. Get recommendations for them. So usually that's the programs team that will deal with that, but make sure that you are asking them what did they like, what didn't they like, and what would they like to see for the next one, because that also helps you to factor that into the program design of next year and how you would approach communication. So for example, if they said they prefer X to Y, that means in your next conference, you need to be communicating X and not Y, right? Or if they didn't like certain things about the conference, you need to deprioritize that in your communication and focus on communicating what was more important or what resonated more with them. Again, strategic choices. So think about how you can get reviews. Think about how you can document the takeaways. I think for me, one thing about conferences, I find that they can be a lot, because you're 2-3 days, there's a lot being said. How can you summarize the key points from each of the panel conversations in such a way that it's very interesting, but it gives people action points? This is what you need to do. We're talking about financing. Here are 5 things you must do with the information you've learned about financing. Not only are you doing that recap for people who attended, people who didn't attend, especially if it was a paid conference, they will also have something to gain. And you want them to be able to say, I really missed, so I must not miss this conference next year. So you need to think about it in both ways. Now, thinking about the long-term plan, what sometimes people will do is your conference is in September, you do your conference, you do your post engagement activities, and we don't hear anything about the conference until next year, October. It's not very great. It's not very great. You must keep some sort of awareness in the minds of your target audience. And so what I said before about thinking about the content, the questions people are asking, what kind of resources can you create? What kind of add-ons can you do? So you can do quarterly webinars that, around the topics that people found the most interesting, that leads you towards the next conference. So for each webinar, you're already prompting people about the next conference. Do you want to create a podcast series? Do you want to create downloadable content takeaways, either how to guide, maybe a one-pager checklist, whatever it is? Yes, it seems like, it's a lot of work for you to do, but it would help your work really, really well, because again, conferences cost a lot of money. They take a lot of time. And if at the end of the day, it's not bringing people that understand that your organization is a thought leader, that your organization is want to be reckoned with within the industry, my question is, why bother? And there's a wealth of information that is shared during conferences, but I find that we don't really make use of, maybe say 40% of the content that comes out of conferences. So think strategically about that. Find creative ways to engage people between the time frame of the conferences, and that can be so for example, one thing that usually happens in panel sessions is that there's usually no time. So if you found that people really wanted to engage in this panel conversation, get their questions and then answer them in blog posts after the conference, or do a live session, either it's a live webinar, or maybe you do a video series and tell the speakers to record a video, talking about key questions that you couldn't answer or that they couldn't answer during the conference. Maybe it could be like a 5-10 minutes thing. That's content for your YouTube. That's content for Instagram. That's content you can put on LinkedIn. See, I'm sharing a lot of ideas with you, and I hope that you're finding these ideas useful. But really, think about engagement, think about value. What value can we add, especially in the time frame between the conferences? And I think about what is most important to the people that are attending this conference, so that next year they're eager. Another thing that you may want to do as well post-event is, get people to say, recommend a friend who must not miss the next conference, or tag a friend who must not miss the next conference. That helps you to also build your list and pool of potential people to target for the next conference. If you engage with the institution, so there are conferences that, for example, you want to get people, institutions rather, to sign up maybe their HR team, to sign up their women. What are you going to do to engage the institutions from the content that you have created? What institutions, what organizations, so that next year you're not going to go and meet them in August to say, enroll your people. You're already engaging. You're already getting them to factor in the conference in their budget, especially if it's a paid conference. So I can talk about this thing the whole day. There's so many things to say, but I'll just wrap up with some useful tips. Like I said before, don't try to do everything on your own. There's a lot that goes on with conferences. There are things that you don't anticipate. So if I remember the last APF conference, I couldn't travel very last minute. I had to handle things remotely, put a plan B in place, a lot of things. And then I think in the middle of the conference, WhatsApp went down, crazy stuff happens, but we were able to pull through because we had a team. And shout out to the Comms Avenue community. I was able to get 3 volunteers from the ALU that came to attend the conference and support the social media team, which was very, very helpful. So you can't do it alone. Please reach out for volunteers. Tell your organization, create budget for volunteers, because if they really want impactful communications, impactful social media content, it can't be just you alone. You also need to think about how you're going to engage the vendors, photography and videos. So your photographer cannot tell you that, I'm going to send you the pictures in 2 business days. It's not going to work. So as you are engaging them, anytime I'm engaging any photographer for anywhere, I say, please, what's the delivery time for pictures? I need pictures as the events are going. So they're the pictures they will send as events are going. Because what is the point of putting, for example, if you want to put a tweet, something that the speaker has said, you can put that tweet alone, but it's more engaging when you either put a picture or a video attached to that tweet. So you need to make sure that you brief your vendors, especially those that have a direct impact on the content and comms that you are doing. So your photographer, your videographer, the people maybe doing the backdrop or whatever it is, engage them on time. Think about the role of media. Do you want them to come, and how do you want them to engage? Do you want to create time for interviews? Because of how fast-paced conferences can be, I don't think that interviews should happen in between sessions, because a lot is happening. But again, that really depends on the arrangement with the media team. So you may want to create a press room, because what I've seen people will do is that the media interviews are taking place just right outside of the event. There's a lot of noise, a lot of distraction. People are waving to the speaker is also distracted. Have a room where interviews can be done, and if those interviews can even be done beforehand, it will be good, so that the speaker is calm, rested and focused, and they're able to convey the information that you want them to convey as well. What other tip can I share with you? Try to have fun. Conferences can be very stressful, but try to have fun. And I think, to wrap up, and that's what I've been saying since, please make strategic choices so that your organization knows, for example, that they need to bring in comms right from the very beginning in terms of designing the conference, the activities, selecting the themes, selecting the speakers, planning the schedule of activities that will be done. They need your advice. Your advice is very, very important. There's no point putting together a 3-day conference and there's no room for people to have fun, even if it's a serious subject matter, or there is no room for people to actually network because they are in sessions talking. What even happens for that kind of conference is that you now find out that the hall is half empty because people are trying to connect and do other things. So you really, really need to think about it. Something I always say is that if you're having a panel with 5 speakers in 30 minutes. I don't really think that's very effective. So if you need to bring those many speakers, do we want to increase the time, or do we want to change the format of the conversation? But again, that's probably another conversation. So that's it from me. I hope that you find this helpful. If you're having a conference from now till the end of November, think strategically about what will gain the most visibility. Think about how you're going to document the content and information that you need. Think about what you're going to do with the information that is shared during the conference, so that you're adding value to the participants, those that attended and those that were not able to attend, so that your conference is seen as one that adds value, as one that's relevant to your industry. And there's some conferences that people are like, we must attend because there's so much value, and you must be able to capture that value in your communications. I found that there are people that they do conferences that are valuable, but if you go on the website, social media, you can't really tell that this conference is valuable until you talk to people who have been there, and it should not be that way. So I hope you found these tips helpful. If you have any more questions, feel free to drop them as a comment here, or you can send me questions on LinkedIn or via email to adedoyin@thecomsavenue.com. Bye.